What's up guys, I'm randomfrankp. Today we're going to be reviewing the ASUS G752V gaming laptop from iBuyPower. If you remember a few weeks ago I did an unboxing of this, but today I'll be giving you guys the full rundown, and this was actually my first actual gaming laptop that I've ever owned. They sent it over to me to check it out, so I'll give you the full rundown, the good, the bad, and ugly, all that good stuff in case you're in the market to pick up a new gaming laptop. We'll check it out for you guys today, and make sure you stay tuned to the end because we're going to be giving away some gear. We're talking some keyboards and t-shirts and stuff like that, so you want to be entered to win. Just stay tuned to the end. But for now, let's check out this ASUS laptop. So my first reaction to this was just very aggressive, and I think aggressive and gamery was the look that ASUS was going for when making this to kind of appeal to that audience. The laptop features a copper and titanium color theme here, with some brushed aluminum finishes throughout, like on the top panel, and altogether it mixes pretty well, doesn't look too bad. On the right side you have your Ethernet port, an HDMI, display port, two USB 3.0s, and a USB Type-C with your basic auxiliary inputs. Then on the left side you have two additional USBs and an SD memory card slot. But one thing that was very odd to me was this has a DVD optical drive built in. That's like a relic at this point when it comes to modern laptops, and it kind of left me scratching my head. On the back you have your grill for your heat exhaust here, and I would say throughout my gaming I didn't notice this was getting really warm or overheating at all, so it does a great job of dissipating that out the back while keeping the system overall nice and cool, so if it's on your lap or something like that you're not going to have a problem. The copper hinge here is very smooth, and the screen never felt like it was flimsy or loose, so I was a fan of that. Now we'll get into the goods and talk specs. And first, this features a 17.3-inch 1080p display, so it's not 4K, but it does have an anti-glare material built in on the matte screen, and I was shining lights directly at it and you could barely tell, and I think gamers can definitely appreciate that. We also have an i7 6700HQ CPU, it's a Skylake model, 16 gigs of RAM, a terabyte of storage, and a GTX 1060 graphics card with 8 gigs of VRAM. But the system is VR ready, so you can have no problems playing those games. All the games I played, it handled very well. I'll show you guys more on that in a minute. Now on the iBuyPower website, they do have updated models with newer specs, so if this isn't good enough for you can definitely check those out. They also make some revisions to the body of the laptop as well. And now we'll get into the keyboard on this laptop, and as you can see, we do have some basic red backlighting, no RGB lighting, that's fine with me, it's going to fit the ASUS theme. But these chiclet keys were very pleasant to type on, they weren't mushy and they weren't loud and clacky. It was a nice in-between, I found them very pleasant. I'm used to typing on chiclet keys, so these were just very low profile and nice. I was very surprised. Definitely a solid keyboard. On the top left side you have 5 macro keys that can bring up certain games or programs, plus a little webcam button which will launch an application like XSplit if you want to live stream. Then the trackpad here was kind of disappointing. I did notice some resistance, so my finger wasn't gliding all that well on it, but if you're using a mice it should be okay. I don't know, I wasn't really a big fan of the left and right clicks either, it just felt kind of mushy, but for basic web browsing I think you would be okay. And then one more thing, up on the numpad you have a little ROG logo here. This is going to bring up their little gaming center. We can go in, mess around with the voltage and frequencies for the GPU and CPU if you kind of want to get a little bit more out of your system. There's also things you can set different profiles and stuff like that, change some of the laptop settings like the lights and the macros and stuff like that. Overall, it's like just kind of a system kind of settings thing where it gives you quick, easy access to it. Alright, cool Frank, but talk about the gaming. For the bulk of my testing, I played games like Battlefield 1. It's a newer, modern title. It's a very vast and lush world with a lot going on. And with everything turned up to the ultra or highest settings, we got a solid 69 frames per second. That's definitely pretty good, and it is helped out by being a 1080p display. That was on the standard voltage settings in the game center. When I bumped everything up to extreme, we did get 3 extra FPS, so we were playing Battlefield 1 at 72 frames. For something like GTA, which is a game that I do play a lot and is still very popular, I wanted to see how that stacked up. And for GTA, we got a nice 71.6 FPS. Now, as you know, that game is very intensive, and the settings there, all the graphical settings, it's very long, there's tons of different things, but this is with everything in the settings turned up to the highest and fullest capability. So say instead of putting everything on very high, you just did high, and most other things at like 75%, you'd probably get around 80 frames and up.
So I, for one, definitely thought that was pretty good, and like I said, you can go into the game settings and kind of tweak it if you don't like the extreme. You can go into manual and change the voltage of things like the graphics card and the CPU. Probably get like 2-3 extra frames, but hey, it's something. And while most might still complain that it's only a 1080p display, I'll say the screen here, for being 17.3 inches, has great pixel density. I'm used to staring at my ultra-wides all day, and when I transitioned over to this, I didn't notice a big difference. Unless, of course, you're like breathing on top of your laptop, it's really gonna be just fine.
So in the end, this is a very solid laptop. Literally, it's a beast. And I mentioned earlier, this was my first gaming laptop. So going into it, I wasn't too sure what to expect, but I mean, overall, I was very surprised. I mean, like I said, they do have those newer upgraded models out there for newer specs, so you can go and check those out. But for everything I threw at it, it handled it just fine. And since it is a 1080p screen, kind of a double-edged sword, but it wasn't that hard to, push a lot of the games. And we handled some of the newer modern titles at over 60 FPS with no problems at all. But if I had to give, I would say my two biggest negatives are, one, it's a tank. I mean, it is a very large laptop, and yes, we have a very nice 17.3 inch screen, so that's where you're gonna be adding, some more bulk to this thing, but it is just very heavy and thick. And I know you need to fit a 1060 inside, so it's not easy to keep this slim. But when you compare it to one of the competitors out there in the Razer Blade laptop, that thing's literally like a third of the thickness, and it has the same specs for the most part. It's got a 1060, and it is much thinner and a lot lighter. And the second con that I talked about earlier is gonna be that trackpad. I mean, there was some slight resistance. It wasn't really like a nice smooth gliding experience, and the left and right clicks were kind of mushy. In the end, not a big deal, since if you're gonna be gaming on this, you're gonna be using a mouse anyways, but I did wanna point that out. But I think everything else, other than its, massive tank of a body, it was pretty solid. And if you wanna check it out and check out their newer models, which is always good because you can upgrade to more of the modern specs out there, I have the link to iBuyPower's website so you can check that out and price others accordingly to see what fits your budget if you're in the market for a new gaming laptop. So hope this video helped you out, guys. And like I mentioned earlier in the beginning of this episode, I partnered up with iBuyPower to give away some things. We're talking, some chill gear here. We got some iBuyPower t-shirts and some keyboards, courtesy from them. So I'll put the giveaway link in the description down below, as well as the link to this laptop in the description, so you can check all that stuff out. Well, guys, that's gonna do it. If you like this video, definitely give it a big thumbs up to show your support. Feel free to follow me on Twitter at randomfrankp. And lastly, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Well, I'm Random Frank P. Hope you enjoyed. Have a good day.